From the Great Basin to the Rockies to the four corners of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. Dwayne Benson here for KMMU Main Street Media, Utah, coming to you live. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitter, and our website, kmmu.org. Please join our host, Dan Fillmore, for Let's Talk Utah's Dan the Eagle. In the news, a California Republican lawmaker is pushing to reverse a statewide policy that allows biological males to play in female sports. The Daily Wire's Matt Walsh was slated to testify before elected officials in a Tuesday hearing. Girls shouldn't have to compete with boys or change next to them in locker rooms. This isn't complicated. Walsh, a podcast host for The Daily Wire and creator of the What is a Woman documentary, told Fox News. Even Gavin Newsom, after sniffing the political wind, now admits it's unfair. Let's see if California Democrats can stop playing pretend. On Thursday last week, President Trump renewed a call to defund NPR and PBS a day after top executives from the public broadcasters faced an intense grilling from GOP lawmakers on Capitol Hill. NPR and PBS, two horrible and completely biased platforms, should be defunded by Congress immediately, Trump wrote late Wednesday on Truth Social. Republicans, don't miss this opportunity to rid our country of this giant scam, both being arms of the radical left Democrat Party. Just say no and make America great again. Republicans on the House Oversight and Government Reforms Delivering on Government Efficiency Subcommittee, there's a mouthful, peppered NPR CEO Catherine Mayer and PBS President Paula Kerger on Wednesday with accusations of bias against conservatives and questions about their funding. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy has begun the process of eliminating a U.S. Food and Drug Administration program called GRAS, or Generally Recognized as Safe, that critics say has been abused by the food industry for decades. Nearly 99% of new chemicals used in food or food packaging since 2000 were greenlit for use, not by the FDA, but by the food and chemical industry, according to a 2022 analysis. For far too long, ingredient manufacturers and sponsors have exploited a loophole that has allowed new ingredients and chemicals, often with unknown safety data, to be introduced into the U.S. food supply without notification to the FDA or the public, Kennedy said in a statement on Monday. Eliminating this loophole will provide transparency to consumers, he said, and help get our nation's food supply back on track by ensuring that ingredients being introduced into foods really are safe.
And welcome back, everybody, to Dan the Eagle. I'm Dan the Eagle. Next to me, you can see, is my buddy Tom, good friend of mine. Sometimes I call him Tummy, Timmy. So you're going to hear me saying all sorts of names today, but I really appreciate this opportunity to be on with Tom. Before we get started, make sure everybody goes over to kmmu.org and you like, subscribe there. Follow us on YouTube, X, and Rumble. I have also another plug for my own nonprofit that I used to work for. Well, I guess I work for every single year. It's just for 2 weeks. We go down to Mexico and we build homes. We bring food to poor people. The man who runs this just got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and he has a bunch of issues in his spine. And so we're really worried about him. So the name of it is Hands on Hope. I decided to wear their shirt today in honor of him. You can go find them at handsonhope.org, and they would love some donations or service, anything that you can offer. Now, on to the show. We have Tom here, who is a product of a vegan home, but he is conservative. Is that right, Tom?
That's true. Yes, I am a conservative raised under vegans.
That's an interesting combination, because you typically would associate veganism with being a hippie liberal, but your parents are not hippies, right?
No, my dad is about as libertarian as it gets.
Yeah, well,
so my mom leans conservative. So
maybe
but it's interesting.
Maybe he's a bit more hippie than what I thought, because libertarian can sometimes mean you're a hippie, but that's okay. That's why I wanted to talk about RFK Jr. with you, because I think that you kind of grew up in a home that was marinated in ideas of staying healthy, organic foods. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yes, that's pretty accurate.
I think I've told this story before on the show, but I'll tell it again. But I got invited to Tom's 4th of July. I'm never going to let this go, by the way. I'm never going to let this go. I got invited to Tom's 4th of July barbecue at his house. And his parents decided to whip up some vegan burgers, which are basically bean discs. They're just discs made of beans and assorted items. And I'm all excited to have a juicy burger. And they're like, okay, here you go. And I eat it. And I'm like, what is this crap? What is this crap? And they said, well, if you don't like that, try this hot dog. Also vegan. Like a sagebrush turd. It was so gross, Tom. Why would you do that to me?
Oh, it's all part of the package, man.
But I did go to Tom's birthday last year, and there was Little Caesars pizza. So I know that you guys can still have some gross food, right?
Sometimes.
So, Tom, what are your general opinions about RFK Jr.? How much do you know about him? What do you think?
Yeah, well, first off, a little bit about my family too. My mom is a huge fan of RFK. Like she has Make America Healthy Again hats and stuff. Um, Generally, I'd say I'm in support of him. I want America to be healthier. I think,
So your mom's a
American,
Maha mom.
she's a Maha mom,
That's
100%.
awesome. We should get her on. That would be great, actually. I would love to talk to her.
She actually has a lot of good insights about like health.
Dude,
And
oh, this is great. Okay, we'll have her on sometime. That's a
so
great
yeah,
idea.
right now she's in Puerto Rico, but I'll talk to her.
When does she get back?
Probably the end of this week.
Okay. Well,
I think
we'll try to
so.
set something up because I would love to get a Maha mom on here. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, so and personally for me, I'm in favor of RFK. I want America to be healthier. I want our like average weight as America to go down. I I think a good example of that is, I forget the name of the movie, but it's the one where the guy eats at McDonald's for every single
Supersize
meal.
me.
Supersize Me. I think that's a great example of the current health state of our country because
Yeah.
a lot of people eat out, like especially people our age, like it's almost like a daily occurrence. People eat out.
I did the math, and I spent $240 last month on eating out.
Holy cow, that's crazy. And it's probably somewhere close to
Crazy.
me too. It's insane. And like the amount
Unreal.
of sugar that we consume,
Mhm.
like it's in everything. It's in our bread. It's like people add it to meat. It's like everything, you
Yep.
know? So long-winded version of saying, yeah, I'm in support of RFK.
Well, great. So here's the first clip that we're going to show you today is RFK talking about all the different chemicals that we have in the United States in our food that other countries will ban. So let's go ahead and take a look at this, and then I'll get your comment on the tail end.
Something is poisoning the American people, and we know that the primary culprits are our changing food supply, the switch to highly chemical intensive processed foods. We have 10,000 ingredients in our country, in our foods. The Europeans have only 400. If you buy McDonald's French fries in our country, there's 11 ingredients, my understanding. In Europe, there's only 3. If you buy Fruit Loops in our country, they're loaded with food dyes, with yellow dye, red dye, blue dye, and many other ingredients. The same company makes the same product with different ingredients for Canada and Europe. And at age, we don't have good science on all these things. And that is deliberate. That's a deliberate choice not to study the things that are truly making us sick, that are not only contributing to chronic disease, but to mortalities from infectious disease. We need to get a handle on this because if we don't, it's an existential threat. Our country is not going to be destroyed because we get the marginal tax rate wrong or because we get one of these culture war issues that we've been talking about today wrong. It's going to be destroyed if we continue down this trajectory of chronic disease. We need to fix our food supply, and that's the number one.
I love that video so much. I think it's so great. There's so many things that I want to talk about in there, Tom. What was some things that stood out to you? I'll let you kind of start us off.
Yeah, well, one thing that stood out to me is chronic disease is on the rise, and it's been steadily on the rise for a long time. You don't go very far without meeting somebody who has some form of chronic disease, and
Diabetes.
diabetes. Yeah. Whereas if you go to other countries, it's not necessarily like a big thing. It still exists, obviously, like
Yeah.
worldwide, but it's definitely like a lower rate than what we have here, and so it's clearly something we're eating.
Yeah.
At least I'd assume. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting. He mentioned so much in here. The example that he gives about a French fry having 11 ingredients in America and only 3 ingredients in Europe. And then talking about Fruit Loops, how the same company will take the same product and it will create it differently, specifically for America, because we allow so many chemicals into our food. 10,000 ingredients in our food, whereas in Europe it's only 400.
wow. Yeah, that's crazy, man. I think the more simple we can get, the better. For sure.
I totally agree with this. I think the idea that we allow so many of these things into our food, even if they're not necessarily horrible for us, is pretty crazy. Because again, our bodies are not developed in a way that will make it so that we can just consume anything we want. There's obviously going to be adverse effects. So what do you think about his stakes that he gives in this? He says that if he says it's the number one issue. He says there's culture war this, culture war that we get distracted by. But if we don't have a good food system, then we're screwed. Well, what do you make of that? Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's definitely one of our top concerns, honestly. I think, well, especially like if you think about like back in the day, like let's take the Roman Empire, for example. Like most men were like military, who were military age, were ready to go, were ready to fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like obviously, like we're meeting the needs of today, and it's not like we have to go march into, I don't know, Croatia or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But health is on the decline, man, and we could get to the point where like everybody will need a moped to like get around a grocery store, or like,
Yeah.
and no offense to people who do that, but like it's something where like it's a quality of life thing, one, but two, when is it going to start affecting our economy? Like people aren't going to be able to work,
Yeah.
like
Well, I
that
think
we
it
got to.
already does affect our economy greatly. I have a hard time. Here's kind of my devil's advocate position. I think that yes, the food that we eat has a massive effect on our bodies, and if we consume things that are, chemicals or things that our bodies are not actually naturally made to consume, then it's going to have a bad effect on us. However, I don't think that there's enough responsibility placed on American citizens for their own choices. Because I see people very frequently choose to drink 48 ounces of Dr. Pepper a day. That's not something that the greedy food companies are forcing anybody to do. These people are voluntarily stuffing their faces with fudge rounds, Twinkies, and Big Macs. And so, sure, the food could be healthier. I totally agree with that. But I don't think that RFK goes far enough in talking about the real issue of America is that we don't eat healthy food at all, even when it does exist. What do you think about that?
No, I actually, yeah, I agree with that. I think just like going to the gym is super healthy for you, I think you need to decide to eat healthy foods.
Yeah.
And we have total freedom as Americans in terms of what we can eat. Like we're very blessed to have a country that can give us anything that we want as long as we pay for it. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yep.
I think that's a wonderful thing, and we having the ability to choose is better than not having the ability to choose. And there's something to be said for that. And I think a bad byproduct of that is people have negative agency, if you would, or like
Right.
be able to choose bad things. And if something is like comforting and easy, then people are going to naturally like lean into that over something that might be uncomfortable
Right.
or yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think about myself very frequently about like I admitted to you I spent over $200 on fast food basically this last month. It wasn't all fast food, but basically it was just food that I don't have to cook. And most of that food is not very healthy, right? And the only reason I'm doing it is for convenience. Could have I cooked every single meal on my own? Yes, I could have. And most of my meals that I do consume are homemade because I want to be healthy. And so I know RFK is in a position where he has to kind of blame something else. And I do think that there is a problem with chemicals, but I don't think that he's painting the full story that's saying lots of Americans have chronic diseases. It's all the food's fault. I think it's a lot of Americans being lazy, refusing to eat healthy foods, and refusing to exercise. But call me crazy, Tom.
No, you're right. Like, there's no law stopping me from eating like a 200 pack of Hostess donuts. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
And I
yeah.
don't think there should be per se, like there shouldn't be. But so this last week, he said that he wanted to. Do you know what SNAP is?
No, I haven't heard.
So
What's
SNAP is food stamps.
Okay.
So Americans who are lower income can receive food stamps that are up to a certain amount of money, and you can go into a gas station, a grocery store, and you can use food stamps to buy your family food. There's pretty much no regulation on what people can buy. So poor people are going in and buying tons of soda and tons of unhealthy food. And RFK Jr. just came out last week saying, I don't think that CHIP, so this food, this SNAP, this program that's created to help poor people have food, should be allowed to purchase soda. What do you think about that?
That's a hard line. I think on one hand, you are taking the government and telling them what they are and not allowed to do. You're kind of restricting freedom in that way if you tell them you can't take soda. So there's that aspect, but the aspect on the other end that I think about too is, like, if these people don't know any better and they just are thinking about like something that like tastes good, then like some guidance there would be really good for them. So I have like two conflicting sides.
Well,
for me on that one.
let me push back a little bit on the first part. There is no freedom with other people's money.
Ooh, I like that.
SNAP is a government program, which means, Tom, me and you pay for it. So I have no issue with requesting and restricting people's spending my money. So you say it's an issue of freedom, but it's not like it's their money. If they want to buy a Coke, they can buy a Coke with their own damn money. What do you think of that, Tom?
I know, I agree with you, Dan. I think when you put it under that lens, it's like, okay, well, yeah, it's not their money, it's our money, like, and if the money's going, let's put it to good use.
I think that SNAP should only allow people to buy broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, rice, and chicken breasts. That's it.
Vegan hot dogs. Don't forget that one.
No. I ban those two. I do not want my taxpayer dollars going to that crap. That actually makes me more mad. That makes me more mad, Tom. There should be nothing vegan allowed.
Soda? Okay, maybe. Vegan hot dogs, little vegan
Hell
hamburgers?
no. No way. That'd be so funny if they force people to have vegan food. But you get my point though, Tom,
yeah.
right? You get what I'm saying. I think it makes absolute sense, and I actually do agree. Low key, I'm not joking about making it really healthy, boring food. Because then you'd incentivize people to get off the boring government diet. Because if you can buy a bunch of unhealthy crap and not have to work for it, then there's no incentive to get off of food stamps.
Right. Yeah.
Rice, cauliflower, carrots. What else would you add to that besides vegan stuff?
Cucumbers.
Cucumbers. Any vegetable.
Kale.
How about that? Any fruit or vegetable and any natural meat. So that is not vegan.
Ooh, okay. So something that's like, it's not really artificially made. It's like all natural, if you would. I like that.
I think RFK would get behind that. I don't know if America would though, because America, again, like we said before, eats like crap. We
Mhm.
eat like it's funny because the two foods that RFK chooses to use are French fries and Fruit Loops to relate to Americans. And he's probably not wrong, Tom. You
Nope.
probably had Fruit Loops today, didn't you?
What did I eat this morning? Oh, you know what? I had a margarita pizza. It's even better.
For breakfast?
For breakfast.
Oh
man.
my gosh. Well, let's be honest, Tom. You are an exception because you have been skinny your entire life, like a rail.
Constant bulk, right?
Yeah, you might need some Fruit Loops in your diet, to be honest.
Okay, and some food dyes.
You-
You think that'll get the
Throw
job
some
done?
food dyes in there, some seed oils. I think that'd be good for you. Well, everybody, thanks again for listening to KMMU Main Street Media Utah. You can hear us and watch us live on YouTube, Rumble, X, and our website, kmmu.org. You can call in live to ask me or to ask Tummy any question. Any question you want. You can ask Tummy why he's a Chargers fan, why on earth he would like such a bad team, why every single color he's wearing is mismatched. You can ask him that. You can ask him why his room is a mess, and we can tell. You could ask me how I got so handsome. You can ask me about Hands on Hope, anything you want. Our lonely call screener is waiting for your call. You can call in at 385-899-2134. Again, it's 385-899-2134. Thanks again for listening. So just an interesting stat that Dwayne pulled up for me here. Approximately 11.6% of the U.S. population, or 38.4 million people of all ages, currently have diabetes. So more than 10% of Americans have diabetes. Pretty crazy. So speaking of diabetes, we're going to talk about transgenderism. Terrible transition. Matt Walsh. I love Matt Walsh. Do you like Matt Walsh, Tom?
Yeah, I love Matt Walsh.
I think Matt Walsh is amazing. I listen to his show every single day. He's one of the inspirations for this show. I don't think I can be as sarcastic and dry as him, but I hope that I can be as somewhat entertaining. He went to California to testify in favor of a bill that would restrict men from competing against women in sports. So, pretty interesting that California actually has this bill that's coming up. And so we're going to take a listen to what Matt has to say, and then we'll get Timmy's reaction. Tommy. Here it is. Go.
Today, I'm not going to talk about fairness, although it's certainly true that allowing men to compete in women's sports is deeply unfair. And I'm not going to talk about safety, although it's certainly true that allowing men into female sports teams and into their bathrooms is incredibly unsafe. I'll let others highlight those important points. I want to talk about something even more important and even more basic. It's the most basic thing of all. It's truth. You must keep men out of women's sports and out of their facilities for the simple reason that they are men. Men are not women. A man who claims he is a woman is still not a woman. So why shouldn't men play in women's sports? Because they aren't women. It isn't true. We should not allow men into women's sports for the same reason we shouldn't go around claiming that 2 + 2 = 7. It's just not true. It is a lie. The man who identifies as a woman is either deluded and confused, or he is a cross-dressing fetishist looking to play out his fantasies in public. In either case, the claim that he's making, the claim to womanhood, is not true. And compelling women to take part in this untruth is evil, perverse, and predatory. If you would use the force of law to compel young girls to use a changing room with a boy, you are yourselves predators. Transgenderism is a lie. It is, in fact, the most deranged lie that mankind has ever invented. In a free country, nobody should ever be forced to participate in a lie. As lawmakers, you have an obligation to the truth. It is a truth that I know you all recognize because every human who has ever lived on earth recognizes it, that men are men and women are women. It is that simple. And the question before you is just as simple. The question is this: will you side with the truth, a truth so basic that every toddler understands it, or will you disgrace yourselves by denying it? That is your choice to make.
Boom. Oh my goodness, Timmy. Whoo.
Oh yeah.
That's so good. Oh, it's so good. What are your thoughts? What are your first impressions?
Well, so with Matt Walsh, I think he laid it down. I think he really just set the record straight. It's pretty hard to refute a lot of what he says. It's as basic as it is. men are men, women are women. He said toddlers recognize it. I think that's a pretty, commonly held thing. I think growing up, for me, I grew up in California, by the way, like Southern California, OC. Like, I never struggled with the idea of what a woman or man is. I'm like, I'd look at like another kid at the playground and go, oh yeah, that's another boy, or like that's another girl. It was like, it's a part of your identity, and it's just what you're naturally with, like it shouldn't be this complicated. But those
It's
are my thoughts.
it's as fun. It's as fundamental as you having the color of your eyes, right? Or the color of your hair, or having 10 fingers. It's just like everything about you is either male or female.
Mhm.
And for some reason, we have decided like this is just, you can't say anymore. And we have to go along with this idea that it just doesn't exist. And so what's interesting is that I like how Matt lays it out so simply. And he doesn't do any kind of arguments for safety. He doesn't do arguments for, I can't remember the other one, with the fairness. So the two that he says, it's not fair, it's not safe. But the main argument here is that it's not true. It's
Mhm.
not true. Men cannot be women. Women cannot be men. And our laws are grounded, or should be grounded, on the idea that they reflect the truth. And he says that people who, this is the part that I love the most, you are either a deluded or confused man, or you are a cross-dressing fetishist playing out your fetish on innocent girls. What do you think, Tom?
Oh, totally agree. It's such an abusive, just everything. Like, you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile here, 100%.
Yep.
Like, the second we let boys into girls' changing rooms, we're gonna see a rise in like sexual crime. I guarantee it. Like, this is something that's unsafe. And it personally, if I had a daughter who was going through sports, and let's say she was like super into basketball, and like that's like her passion, what she loved, and she has to go into the changing room and be with the guy, I would be super uncomfortable with that. I'd take her out of it. There's no way.
Yeah. Honestly, it,
But
it reminds it. Here's just like an example for you. It would be if like you decided to go to a barbecue and you showed up and there was no meat. That that's just a random analogy that came to my head. You show up and you're like, okay, I expect meat, and they give you this thing and they call it meat, but it's not meat, right? It's this bean disc. So just a random. I just thought random example. Um, the other thing that he said that I liked is it's evil to compel people to share a locking room and privacy with somebody based off of a lie. So telling a lie, one, is evil, but two, telling a lie and forcing other people to go along with that lie is even worse. What do you think about that?
yeah, I mean, it's just people wanting, I don't know, like sympathy or like acknowledgement for whatever they have going on in their lives. And like, I think it's really dumb that we're expected to, like, let's take the example of like if it was a furry or something, like, and we had to actually acknowledge that they were a wolf every time we went to school. Like, of course I'm not doing that. It's ridiculous, but
Yeah. It's not based on truth. Forcing someone to go along with something that is not true is more evil than lying itself. And an entire political party has been hijacked by this idea, Tom. The Democrats are going in on this hook, line, and sinker. They want this. They want more of it. Why do you think that is, Tom? Why do you think Democrats are so incapable of recognizing the truth? And why are they pushing people to deny reality?
well, I think when you say denying reality, it's fundamentally right there. I think the Democrat Party appeals to people's emotions more than actual like logic and fact. And that is exactly, this is like a prime example of what we're seeing right here. Like, a lot of people are concerned about the whole men and women being in the same sports as like a safety thing. It's also a competition thing, but as a safety thing, they're looking at it from a term of a safety standpoint, whereas I think most Democrats who like this and what's going on with this, it's about inclusion and like making sure they feel like loved and supported and they feel like part of the group.
I think you're right. I think that there is definitely like just to give what is the phrase? Give the devil his due. I do think a lot of this does come from empathy, where people really do want to help people and show empathy, and I think that that's definitely part of it. I think that from a not so kind standpoint would be that these people hate Western civilization. They hate the idea of gender in and of itself because it's inherently restricting, because it means that women have certain duties and men have certain duties. Because if you say men are different from women, then that also implies that we have different interests. And if we have different interests, that means we're going to excel at different things, which means that men will be better than women in many things. And that means that women will be better than men in many things. And that right there, I think, is what a lot of people can't stand. They can't accept that men and women are different. So they are constructing this entire worldview around denying reality, because for whatever reason, I think it starts with feminism, where feminism says, I'm a girl boss. I can do anything a guy can do, but better, which is not true. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the main thing on my mind is that it is just like people just trying to live in their own fantasy. And, a lot of that could be like grief. I mean, this isn't a very like logically sound argument I'm about to make, but they're definitely coping with reality at that point,
Yeah.
like they're just trying to avoid the fact that their life isn't as good as they want it to be.
Yeah.
And again, probably not the most logically sound argument, but is one that comes to my mind.
I'm sure that I am certain that these people who truly believe this stuff are not happy. There's no way that you can deny reality, deny biology, encourage surgical mutilation of yourself and other people's bodies, and still feel fulfilled and happy. There's just no way that that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, I'd call it mental illness, like the fact that somebody wants to mutilate themselves just to feel like they can accept themselves is not something that's normal.
Yeah, it's not.
Call me crazy.
I think sadly, I think a lot of it's narcissism as well, where you can literally take something about yourself, claim a completely different thing, and then get attention for it. So like just for an example, if I could control, Tom, that you every time you interact with me have to have a good time, and the only words you can use to describe me are funny, handsome, and brilliant. Let's just say I have that power, and literally every time you're around me, you have to say those things. I then have all the power in that relationship. I have all the power. So it's the same thing with these people who are quote unquote non-binary, which is actually, I'm not going to say the word. I don't know what the policy is on this word. I'm not going to say it. It's very silly. But when they use, when someone comes up and says, well, use they, them pronouns with me, they are controlling what you say about them. They are controlling what you think. They are manipulating your language every step of the way, even though you can clearly tell what biology actually is. I personally think that a lot of this comes down to narcissism. These people are full of themselves. They can see that there are weak people who will go along with this crap, and they just take full advantage of them.
Yeah, I mean, my personal thought on that too is like, let's take your example of like me having to call you funny every time I was around you. Is that a real relationship at that point?
Right.
Is it really fulfilling the purpose? Like the fact that you're forcing me to call you they, them is just for you, and it's a one-way street. There isn't really like much human connection in that. It's just like it's flat.
Absolutely. It's controlling, and it's horrible. And if people choose to do it, they will lose so many friends, because the only friends that will remain with them are those who reflect their own narcissism back at them. And that will not last. Just won't. So, Tom, we all agree with this argument, obviously, but this did not even pass the committee. The committee has 9 members, and it was voted down 6-3 on party lines. No Democrat voted for it. None. So it didn't even, it couldn't even go on
Wow.
to the Senate or the House floor to be openly debated in front of the public.
Wow.
It had its committee hearing. It was shut down in committee. So I mean, you get exactly what you get in California. And we're going to take a listen to a couple of the counter arguments, Timmy. Let's see if they can persuade us, our horrible biological minds that are sound and reasonable. Let's see if they can push us and prove us wrong, Timmy. Let's take a look at the counter arguments.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
For well over a decade, California has allowed transgender student athletes to compete alongside their cisgender peers and to use the restrooms and facilities that best aligned with their gender identity. These policies have been working for years. The author of AB 844 frames this bill as an effort to protect women and girls. As the mother of a 21-year-old daughter, I worry about my daughter's safety constantly. Sexual assault and violence directed at women and girls is at epidemic levels. But that threat of violence comes largely from their coaches, intimate partners, and family members. There is no credible evidence to suggest that trans students are a threat to their classmates or their teammates. And this is why anti-sexual assault and domestic violence organizations denounce bills such as this.
I'm also the proud mama bear.
Okay, let's take this lady's arguments first. So, she says, okay, California apparently has been doing this for 10 years. They've been allowing boys to compete in girls' sports for 10 years, which is crazy. I mean, 2015 they were doing this? That's nuts. I mean,
That is crazy.
that is crazy, first of all. So, and it says that these policies have been working fine. There have been no issues along the way. She says, I'm always worried about my daughter's safety, but it's from other people, not from the athletes. And then she talks about how there's no evidence that there are any kind of threats posed by transgender girls in sports. So one by one, let's go ahead and break these down. So Tom, 10 years of this? 10 years?
I doubt it.
There's no
I
way
doubt
that
it.
they've been allowing this for 10 years. This is a phenomenon that's super early. So I think that's a lie. Maybe I'm wrong though. I'm not gonna bury my I'm not gonna die on that hill. So Tom, she says that these policies have been working. Do you think that these policies have been working, allowing boys into girls sports?
Well, clearly not. It's still an argument. But that's just my knee-jerk reaction. I don't think it's been working though. I think well, you could look at the Olympics. Like, wasn't there this huge backlash in the Olympics over this?
Yep.
So like
Iman Khalil, the guy from Morocco who has XY chromosomes and fought against this little Italian girl and beat the crap out of her. And she gave up after 45 seconds because she said she'd never been hit so hard.
Yeah, because that's not a safety concern.
I think it's interesting though, because she never actually goes and she never combats Matt's argument head on. His argument is that it's not true.
Mhm.
And she just says, well, it's not actually that bad. It's not that it's not, they're not actually in danger, blah, blah. She never ever comes out and says biology doesn't exist and it doesn't matter. She doesn't make that claim.
Well, she'd get destroyed if she did.
Yeah, exactly. So like they're clearly not in the right. The only way that they're doing is to distract your attention, say it's really not that bad. Here's what really stood out to me. Well, let me ask you, Tom, what lines from her stood out to you?
Well, I think we covered a little bit of it. One of them was that it's been working for years. I was like, no, I don't think so. I do think she was just kind of like overall not that confident. I don't know what the best term is for that, but her arguments were not very logically based. In fact, this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, but it goes along with it. I asked ChatGPT, give me the 3 best arguments and the 3 worst arguments, and the 3 arguments against transgender people competing in women's sports. So like what
Yeah.
goes good and what goes against.
Sure.
And then I can go deeper into that if you want, and then I said which one is more like factually based, which one would win in an argument. And ChatGPT said from a purely logical and scientific standpoint, the argument against trans women competing in women's sports tends to be stronger due to measurable physiological differences between biological males and females. So it's silly, but even ChatGPT, I got to say, okay, like clearly, like
Yeah.
from a logical standpoint, this doesn't hold up.
Absolutely. So what stood out to me was when I was listening to this the first time, the very first thing I thought of, she says, I am worried when my daughter is by herself. I am worried about my 21-year-old daughter constantly. I would like to know why. Why are you worried about your daughter as opposed to your son? Can we talk about why your daughter is more vulnerable per se than your son might be? Let's think about that claim that you just said. I'm worried about my 21-year-old daughter. Why? You are worried about her because of other men. Because of men. You are not worried about her getting assaulted by a woman. You are not worried about her walking into this back alley and a bunch of girls show up with their high heels. You're not worried about that. You are worried about your daughter because she is a woman and because she is smaller. She is more vulnerable. She is not as strong as a man. If a man got to her and had bad intentions, she could die. That is why we don't want them in sports. You said yourself, I am worried about my daughter. You are implying something. And it's crazy that they'll say things like that. She literally said, I'm worried about my daughter constantly. And then they go and say, well, but also women, really, it doesn't matter if they compete against men because who cares? You care. You care about your daughter. And it turns out I care about her more than you do, actually.
Ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. I think if she really sat down and thought about it and stopped coping with herself, she would come to realize that there are two genders and you can find out who's who pretty fast.
Yep. I would actually love to do, this is a test that I was thinking about. I want to do a blind text conversation with 20 girls and 20 guys and tell them to just talk to each other. And just based off of how they speak, put it into a program and see, or even ask people, do you think this is a boy or a girl? And I bet you that you could get accuracy down to like a 90% because men and women aren't the same. They don't talk the same. They're just different. And it's been interesting to think more about that. So let's jump into the second counter argument, Tummy. Let's go ahead and look at this fine lady who has a pin on that says protect trans youth, which is an absolute oxymoron. Go ahead.
Assault and domestic violence organizations denounce bills such as this.
I'm also the proud mama bear for my daughter who is trans, and I'm here to make sure that you understand that everyone deserves to have equal access to facilities in alignment with their gender. I know we just talked a lot about sports, and the issue of sports and facilities is actually very tied together. My daughter has played soccer, baseball, roller derby, and hockey. And I have to say, I love it when she has a game or a practice. She comes home feeling grounded in her body. With her safe involvement in sports, she gets to show off the sparkly, wonderful human that she is. By contrast, in spaces where she has not felt comfortable using facilities aligned with her gender, I've seen her physically uncomfortable with stomach aches that have sometimes kept her home from school.
Man, there are just some people that you see and you can just tell that they're evil. As soon as she started talking, I was like, this lady is horrible. What do you think, Tom? What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I don't agree with anything she said, but I don't think she was lying, which is the funny thing. I think she's so deep into her own deception of everything. She wholeheartedly believes in this stuff.
I
That's
agree.
one thing that stood out to me. The other thing too is the whole like bellyache comment afterwards. Like, I think she was trying to garner some sympathy with that one or something. But like, I was just like, sounds like your daughter just or son, whatever.
Timmy,
Your
don't go
son,
along with them.
your son, like, just needs to, I don't know, do something different because
Yeah.
clearly. Anyway, it's just
So here are the
weird.
2 examples she gives. And I want you to think about this, Tom. Let's say you as a 17-year-old guy goes to a soccer practice for girls. You would come back so ecstatic. Like, I just destroyed. I just wrecked. I just showed up and I was faster than everybody. I could kick the ball so much harder. I was way faster and I was able to do all the things they weren't able to. No wonder she feels amazing. Dang it. I did it. No!
You're buying into the lies.
I need
man.
to have a vegan burger now. Dang it.
One of us.
No, but I think about that, Tom. Of course he had a great time crushing these poor girls. Of course he did.
Right.
When my
Yeah.
son got home, he was so, well, she says my daughter, which is just crazy. When my daughter comes home, she's so happy that she just wrecked all these poor 12-year-old girls. It's insane. It's, of course the son has a great time destroying
Mhm.
girls in a sport. I would too.
Mm-hmm.
Winning by that much is amazing.
And honestly, if I was like a girl in like high school sports or even college sports, I would be upset about this. I'd be like, you're kidding me? Like, this thing that I've been working hard for, this thing that like I put like money, time,
Yep.
and like effort into, like now it's getting taken away because some person who's just more biologically built gets to have fun and
But Timmy, you might cause a tummy ache.
oh no, poor tummy ache.
Not my
Oh.
tummy ache, Tummy.
Oh, Ugh,
If you
man.
don't go along with the delusions, they will get a tummy ache, and that's horrible. So what I didn't show you, Tom, and what I think you should look up is the person who testifies right after Matt Walsh. It's this girl who was a student athlete, and she made the varsity team, and she trained every day her entire life for this position, and then she was then replaced by a boy who wasn't even very good at her sport. And like you said, like the amount of work that a woman has to do to reach peak performance in like the hierarchy of women is a ton. And for a man to just walk in and say, well, I'm going to take it, is so selfish, so deluded, and incredibly anti-woman.
Oh yeah, like if you're a logical feminist, you should be like against any trans people in women's sports in general, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, and like the ones that are, I don't really understand. I beats me on why they would be in support of that, but
yeah,
it's silly.
I think there's a lot of pressure to be quote unquote tolerant, like we were talking about. And if you're not tolerant, then you're not nice. And not being nice is the worst thing on the planet.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's right. Empathy is the number one characteristic of the Democrats. So
yep.
Yeah.
So we got to work on that for sure.
Totally.
Speaking of empathy, I have none for NPR. None. But before we get to that, I'm going to read another ad. Thank you for listening to KMMU. I'm here with Tommy McGuire himself, Main Street Media, Utah, KMMU. You can hear us and watch us live on YouTube, Rumble, X, and our website, kmmu.org. You can call in live to talk to me or to Chargers fan Tummy Ache, Tummy Boy, 385-899-2134. Again, 385-899-2134. So, NPR, Tom. NPR, National Public Radio. Did your dad ever listen to NPR?
He actually does, but only to hear the opposition's view in a lot of things. Like he would listen to them to get like the other side's perspective, I guess.
He knew it was liberal this whole time.
Yeah, I feel like it was pretty common knowledge that NPR has been liberal for the longest time. But
everyone knows it. Everybody Everyone knows it, except for the CEO. The CEO, Tom. She doesn't know that NPR is liberal. She has no clue. They're biased. Totally biased, Tom, according to her. So we're going to watch some clips of her getting absolutely wrecked by a couple members of the House. So first, this one is by Congressman Brandon Gill from Texas. And he reads a couple of tweets from her. I'm just going to sit back. I wish I had some popcorn. We're going to enjoy the destruction of this woman.
Let's do it.
Right after we talked about women's rights and protecting women, let's destroy.
Gosh.
Here we go. Jumping in.
Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You
Don't know where
tweeted
statement
that in
comes from.
reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't. You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. Ha, how white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I have never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone
Seems
to
to
pay
be what you're
reparations, sir.
suggesting. Do you believe that looting is morally wrong?
I believe that looting is illegal, and I refer to it as counterproductive. I think it should be prosecuted.
Do you believe it's morally wrong, though?
Of course.
Of course. Then why did you refer to it as counterproductive? It's a very different way to describe it.
It is both morally wrong and counterproductive, as well as being
You
illegal.
tweeted, it's hard to be mad about protests in reference to the BLM protests, not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression. You didn't condemn the looting. You said that it was counterproductive. NPR also promoted a book called In Defense of Looting. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I'm unfamiliar with that book, sir, and I don't believe that was at my
You
time at
tweeted
NPR.
that you read that book, but
I don't believe that I did read that.
Man, she must, I don't know. I think she might have gotten hit in the head, like got in some crazy car accident, and she lost her whole memory. What do you think, Tom?
Well, for me, it looks like she's just trying to defend her holding her position. She's just in defense mode. She's denying everything. And like, it was just so comedic because he would like ask her a question, she would deny it, and then he's like, well, actually, you said this here. It was just like,
Yeah. So do you believe that America is based on a system of racism and white people should pay reparations? No. But you tweeted it. Oh, I don't recall that. But you did. It's right here. Why did you tweet that? I don't know. She even said, I have no doubt that that's what the tweet says. And then he says, okay, so you did tweet it. And she says, I have no recollection. That's crazy, Tom.
she must have been blackout drunk the entire time when she's tweeting.
So either she's completely drunk every time she posted those things, or she had a crazy car accident where she lost all her memory, or 3, she is a disgusting liar who should not be a part of a government-funded news organization. Which one of the three do you take, Timmy?
Number 3, my lord.
Number 3, my lord. Yeah.
The fact that this is government funded, like, it'd be one thing if it was like CNN, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, okay, obviously you know where you're gonna get with CNN, but something like NPR where it's like, oh shoot, like the government funds this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going like directly, like it's completely partisan.
Yep.
It's so partisan.
Some
and
of
our
the worst.
taxpayers are going to it.
I mean, some of the worst partisan things, like those things aren't even things that I think the majority of Democrats would believe. Like, she says looting is okay. She says that everyone should pay reparations. White people should pay reparations. White people feel superior to other races. Like, she says all that stuff, and I don't even think the majority of Democrats believe that stuff. So not only is she a partisan Democrat, she is a hard left, crazy partisan Democrat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd go as far to say she's more racist than the average person.
Yeah.
If she's thinking all of that stuff, she's probably the racist one.
Well, yeah.
But
being a radical leftist inherently means you're racist to white people. You just can't stand them. You cannot stand white people if you are on the far left. It doesn't comport in your worldview.
Well, it's funny though, because she literally said verbatim, white people have a superiority complex, therefore superiority is a thing.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's just it's ridiculous.
I think my favorite one, the one that just makes me slap my face the hardest, is when she says, well, he says, do you think that we should pay reparations? And she says, no, I don't. And then he says, well, what do you mean? And she says, well, I was just trying to say that we owe a lot to those who came before us. It's like, what? That has nothing to do with anything you just said. That's like if your girlfriend is like, hey, does this dress make me look fat? And you're like, well, it doesn't make you look skinny. And then she gets mad at you. And then you say, what I was meaning to say is that the flowers on that dress really accentuate the colors of the wall.
It's like totally random.
It's like, okay. I mean, like, maybe they do. You're avoiding the question.
Yeah. Oh, man. That makes me upset, man. I'm not gonna lie.
And the book that she took time off to read, Tom, do you think that was true? You think she just doesn't remember reading the book? Did she not read it?
Well, let me tell you this, Dan. I've read a couple books in my lifetime, and I could probably name all of them off. You know, it's not hard to forget a whole book you read.
Seriously, though, like, I think in total, this is going to be embarrassing. I've probably read like 5 books in my whole life. And yeah, I can remember sitting down and reading that thing, and I can tell you all about them.
Right.
Clearly, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, yeah. It's just clearly lies. She's just lying. Anybody could just look at it and see that. You don't have to be on the left to see that she's lying. It's clear that, or on the right to see that she's lying.
Yeah.
You don't have to be on the right to see that she's lying. It's so clear. Like, and literally, it's so comedic how he's just like, well, I got the evidence right here.
He handled it so well, dude.
He did.
Oh, that was beautiful. There are very few moments in life where you get to see Congress and be proud of it. I was very proud of Congress right there. Well, that's not the only person who berated her, Tom. We have more. Worry not.
Ooh.
I know you were worried, Timmy. Don't worry
sad.
anymore. I got one right here for you. Let me pull this bad boy up.
Failed to do that. Let me ask you, why did you call President Trump a fascist and a deranged racist sociopath in 2020?
Oh, Congressman, I appreciate the opportunity to address this. I regret those tweets. I would not tweet them again today. They represented a time where I was reflecting on something that I believe that the president had said rather than who he is. I don't presume that anyone is a racist.
You don't believe anyone is a racist?
I don't start by presuming anyone is a racist.
Failed to do that.
You call Trump a deranged fascist racist. What do you think about that? What do you think, Tom?
Well, it's interesting. First point is she's like, oh, good. I finally get to.
I really appreciate you bringing this up.
And so, like, it's clear that she was preparing for this to come up, and her response wasn't good.
No, it was terrible. I would never tweet those again today. Of course you wouldn't, because we're freaking on to you, woman.
Right, like, if there was no accountability here, you would still hold that opinion. You
Yeah.
know, like
100%. And she probably does still hold that opinion.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and this is just another remark that I have. Calling someone a fascist is just another word for calling someone you don't like them at
Yep.
this point. Like it's just a blanket term. Like it's stupid.
It
but-
honestly feels like we're playing Secret Hitler. And
right.
people are just like, fascist, you're a fascist, you're a fascist. Wait, why am I a fascist? I saw you blink. You blinked twice. Oh my God, you blinked 3 times. You're a fascist.
Fascist.
That's what it feels like, man. That word is just thrown around so much. So, but Timmy, you were getting worried. You were getting sad. I could tell you were like, no more NPR lady. Timmy, I got another one for you.
Another?
Here we go.
Oh my gosh.
I know you were worried.
Former senior business editor for NPR.
How long do you work at NPR?
Okay. Actually, I suck. I need to tee this one up. So, there's a guy who worked there for 25 years who came out with a story saying that 85 of the people that were reporting were Democrats and 0 of them were Republicans. So just to set that up. So here it is. Here we go.
I believe he was there just over 25 years.
25 years? Award-winning journalist? Did he win any awards?
Our time did not
Peabody
overlap.
Award? That's pretty important, isn't it?
That is,
So
absolutely.
pretty distinguished journalist, right?
Certainly.
And he wrote a long story about what you do at NPR. Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions. No.
Well, Mr.
You hear them laughing?
Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
Was award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0, and you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
It's concerning. I mean, it wasn't 44-43. It wasn't 60-27. It wasn't 70-17. It wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say NPR is not biased. How about the big stories over the last few years? According to Mr. Berliner, again, he wrote on the Trump-Russia story, he wrote, at NPR, we hitched our wagon to Trump's most visible antagonist, Representative Adam Schiff. He said they interviewed him 25 times. Is that accurate?
I was not there at the time, but those numbers sound accurate. Yes.
Those sound accurate. But then he said when the Mueller report came out and Robert Mueller said he found no evidence of collusion, he said Russiagate faded from our programming. Is that accurate?
Again, I was not there at the time. I couldn't say.
You couldn't say?
I was not at NPR at the time.
You didn't prepare for that? You knew we were going to ask you about this guy, didn't you? It's come up like 6,000 times already in the hearing.
I just couldn't say whether it faded from our coverage, sir.
How about this story? October 2020, the New York Post had the Hunter Biden laptop story, and one of those editors, I guess one of those 87 Democrat editors, said this: we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. We don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' times on stories that are just pure distractions. Was that a pure distraction story?
Our current editorial leadership believes that that was a mistake, as do I.
Yeah, the whole country knows that was a mistake. Definitely impacted the election, or I think it certainly impacted the election. How about the COVID?
Oh yeah, he keeps going. He goes on for a while. We're not going to listen to all of that. But Tommy, what do you think? Is NPR biased?
Oh, of course. You just pull up any one of their stories, you can tell. And so I'm assuming so it was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans. That's insane.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming they're leaving out the independent number, but not like that's helping or anything. It's just this is not what our tax dollars are going to. Something as partisan as this. Get out of here.
Crazy, man. It'd be one thing to have like NPR and it was Democrat, and then you had like another thing where it was 87 Republican, so you could kind of get both sides of the story government funded, but we don't have that.
Nope.
It's completely controlled by Democrats. And here's like what I find interesting to think about, and I'd like to get your opinion on it. Why do you suppose that a government funded radio station is controlled entirely by Democrats?
Well, there's a number of factors. I think the two that come immediately to mind is one, it's a power grab. Like if the opportunity presents itself, like power doesn't exist in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Somebody's gonna come grab it. So there's that, and then
But
the
why
other
wouldn't
thing,
that be Republicans who just grab it?
you know what? That's a fair point. I'm not sure, and that kind of leads into the other thing I was thinking of too. It's like Democrats have controlled media forever, like literally forever. I think. Well, the only one that I can think of that's big that comes to my mind that's not left leaning is Fox.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the only one I can like think of. There might be more that
Of like corporate media. No,
corporate media.
Fox
Yeah,
is the
exactly.
only one.
Right, and so and even then they still lean left on a couple things if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
But
they're definitely not like a conservative powerhouse for
no.
sure.
So it's just there's just been this monopoly on it, and why that's the case, I have no clue.
That's what I'm trying to think, man. Like, why is it? How is it possible that like all of Hollywood, all of higher education, all of media is controlled by radical leftists? Like, is it just because conservatives were asleep at the wheel, and we just said, well, we want a small government, so we could not take this power, and so we just decided to back off. And with this massive backing off, did they just swoop in and take it? Do you think that could be possible?
I don't know. Like, I don't think any sane person would just see power and say, nah, I don't want it. Or like any normal person, I guess, anyway. Aside from like George Washington, you know what I mean? Or like people who like willingly turn down power. But
I think about like libertarianism, for example, where like a libertarian would say, like, well, we just need to make the government smaller so that no one can have this power. But that means that they never actually get in power because they don't like power. So like that kind of personality is like not interested in gaining power, and they're not effective at getting it because they're not as ruthless. So the most ruthless people who are seeking after power are the most likely to get it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? Like that's entirely the case, that just Democrats have more drive, and that's what they wanted, so they went and took it. It could also be a numbers thing too, like maybe left media gets more money than right media. You know, that's something I was kind of thinking too. I don't know if that's the case or if that's factually like a thing, but it's entirely possible.
What I've seen in my own life is that conservatives do this. Conservatives say, well, we just want to be neutral. In school, let's not talk about politics. At church, let's not talk about politics. Let's just leave all of that. Let's just not talk about it at all. Like the most conservative people that I know hiss at the idea of putting 10 commandments into a church, into a school. Right. They hate that idea. Like, so because they just want to maintain absolute neutrality in everything. Democrats don't. They don't want neutrality in things. And so when you have neutrality and extreme leftism, what do you get? You get extreme leftism because neutrality is always going to lose. You always end up ceding to the side that's pushing harder. I don't see any conservatives pushing hard the other direction.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I think conservatives have been apologists for the longest time of just having to defend their viewpoint. And I think it's about, and I think this is what we're seeing with Donald Trump being elected too, is we're seeing more aggressiveness coming out and more, and you can clearly tell that we've been more aggressive because the left media is all freaking out. Like you open the news, people are freaking out all the time about stuff that Trump has done.
But it's the thing is, Thomas, I don't even see the crazy conservative things that he's pushing. I don't see them. I see things going back to neutral. He's saying, let's go back to the way things were in the 2000s. That's like all he's saying. Boys and girls sports. Let's just get rid of the boys. Back to how it was in the 2000s. An open border. Let's just go back to how it was. Let's close the border. Like none of these things are like crazy right-wing conservative things that he's pushing hard for. Like if he was saying we should bring back arranged marriages, then it'd be like, wow, this guy is really aggressive. Holy crap. And you could say he's like pushing hard, but he's not. The things he's pushing for are absolutely neutral in my estimation.
Right. And, you know, like there might be. I mean, like that's just like the way it is. The harder you push, the more people like go to your side. I
Maybe.
think,
Who knows?
but
There could be a lesson though in the Democrats pushing too hard though, because now they've alienated themselves, and they have an approval rating of like 29%. And I think that a lot of that has to do with people like Kamala Harris saying things like this.
Have empathy, man. For the suffering of other people. Have sense of purpose. Have empathy, man.
I love her little Jamaican accent. Have empathy, man?
Kamala Harris, man. Imagine a whole 4 years with her.
Oh man, I think about that all the time, and praise God that we have Trump and not that shrieking Jamaican wannabe. Have empathy, man?
Have you seen the Freedom Tunes of her, like, in all of her accents?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Well, Timmy, I'll do one last ad read and then we'll boogie out of here.
All right.
Thank you again for listening to Dan the Eagle. It's been a great show with our boy Timmy. We appreciate you all tuning in, all 1 billion of you. There's 1 billion people watching right now, Tom. So that's pretty cool.
I'm
1
honored.
billion people. Thanks again for listening to Main Street Media. You can hear us and watch us live on YouTube, Rumble, and X, or on our website, kmmu.org. You can call in right now live to talk to me or to Timmy. The number is 385-899-2134. 385-899-2134. Our lonely call screener is waiting for your call. He's desperate. He needs something to do. I can see Dwayne over there. He's falling asleep. You need to call in and ask Tom why he's a Chargers fan. You need to ask him why he can't color coordinate or clean his room. You need to ask him these things. Well, we'll give it another minute or so to see if someone is brave enough to call in. I don't think they will. I did have my first call in last week though, Tom, but it was
wow.
It was Riley, and he was told to call in. So we're making progress, baby.
I mean, if paying people to stand in line drives up business, then if it works, it works.
Yeah, I might need to do that. We need to get your mom on. Seriously.
Oh yeah, seriously, I'll talk to her. Yeah,
I would love to talk to a Maha mom and get all her opinions and ideas out to the public. Well, no one's calling, so I think we'll call it there. Thanks again, Tom. We appreciate you coming on, and thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next Wednesday at 4:30. It's going to be an amazing episode. You won't want to miss it.